2001's Red Alert 2, spoiler-free, at least for this game, review. And, let's see, the game, I forget the exact rating, but it's not, like, super high. Maybe teen or something, so will this video be. And, yeah. I didn't always, but I came around on this game, and I really love it. I think we're gonna speed around the couple of. I'll there's a little bit of like negative. Yeah, it's it was the first EA game rather than Westwood, so there's obviously some stuff there that's yeah. I don't think I have to tell any gamer why EA in a lot of ways suck. Yeah, one of the biggest about this is that, so the Command & Conquer franchise games before this one were corny in the FMVs and such. That wasn't on purpose. In this one it is. And that's in part, back then, like FMVs, it was difficult to not make them corny. I'm not entirely sure I know of even one game that completely avoided it. Yeah, like, maybe Nocturne? I suppose possibly that one, but that might be the exception that proves the rule. And yeah, obviously, now that it's on purpose, you might be disappointed and frustrated. Whether you liked the games despite the corny FMVs, or if you did like the corny FMVs and are now annoyed that, like, because there's less charm there when it is like, oh, now they're just doing it on purpose. I haven't really watched Birdemic, either of those films, but I do hear that people greatly prefer the first one where it wasn't on purpose. He set out to make a good movie. He failed in what I hear described as hilariously. Yeah, let's go with that. And then he was like, oh, I can make another one. Then he purposely made it, yeah. And I think other than that, there's occasional things where, let's see. Yeah, I think other than that, it is really just the fact that somehow somehow the lack of attack move returned. And at this point, it was getting kind of silly. I'm glad that they, the next time they made an RTS was Generals, and that one did have it. Yeah, it's pretty wild by 2001 to not have it. Like, okay, before this, games that did include some of the biggest, some of the most beloved. You have the, let's see, StarCraft and Brood War. You have at least the second. I can never remember about the first. But Age of Empires 2 and, expansion packs and such had come out multiple years before this. I genuinely don't know why it didn't, by this point, why they didn't add it. But anyway, I think those are all the pretty much all the negatives out the way, because I want to focus on how much I love this game. This is, yeah. So, let's see, where did we get to the, right, and yeah, this is a review from memory. I have not played this, let's see, yeah, it's definitely been years. I'm afraid I did, yeah, that was before I started writing down when I last played a game, I think, because I was actually, I was briefly, for a while, I was planning on playing every single of these games, and then my wrists got bad. I think I got most of the way through the first Command & Conquer, and that was like 8 years ago. So it's more than 8 years. That's all I can say for sure. But I have spent countless hours playing this. I got all the way through the campaigns, at least once each. And I've played multiplayer, sometimes against human players, sometimes with them against AI. A lot of times by myself against AI. But yeah, so the plot here. I forget. I think originally. So take it, what I'm about to say with a grain of salt. My wrists are too bad to check. But if I understand correctly, and this is also me trying to remember something I heard years and years ago, but originally they were just meaning to make one Red Alert game. They didn't expect it to be such a massive success. Which, like, yeah, sometimes people making media really don't know how amazing what they're making is. Because that first Red Alert, I did an entire video on it. I'm not gonna go over everything again. Anyway, that was just supposed to be a prequel to the original Command & Conquer, because they were like, oh wow, this first Command & Conquer did really well. They're like chomping at the bit. They want another game, but we're not quite ready, we feel like, for the sequel. And once we think we're ready, we're gonna have to delay it. So anyway, let's make a prequel. Let's just make a, wouldn't this be a fun concept? What if Albert Einstein killed Hitler and World War II was led by Stalin instead of Hitler? Like, that's genuinely like, oh yeah, that's, and yeah, obviously got really successful. So when they made this, they didn't so much try to make a prequel sequel to the original franchise as much as just a sequel to this game. At this point, there's not so much hinting at, later on we'll get, Actually, I also think this can't be canon from what I recall, because let's see, the Tiberium meteorite, I think, would have hit Earth by the time this game is set, and there's no mention of it. And in the first Command & Conquer, we're told, oh, like, it changed everything. It was, you thought, like, the gold rush or the oil, race were bad. You ain't seen nothing yet, buddy. But, in this, it's just not even mentioned. And I think that was the right choice, because there's just so much, like, it is genuinely such a fun idea to have this. So yeah, the world set up in, Red Alert 1. And yeah, as per usual for this franchise, yeah, the good guys won last time. So that's the starting point. But yeah, it's been decades, and, America and Russia are, Russia, you know how it goes. Russia got the bomb, but that's okay, because the balance of power is maintained that way. And by the, anyway, they're our friends now. Yeah, that aged poorly. But yeah, then let's see. Yeah. Yeah, I guess this is a fine time to say, I look forward to Putin trying to invade Ukraine. That's going to be really, really good, and not just because there's some chance that it's going to be accompanied by him no longer being in power, and he wouldn't have had to worry so much about what would happen when he was no longer in power if he hadn't been corrupt for so long. But anyway, yeah. So they're allies, but this starts with Russia, carrying out, a sneak attack that I think is meant to invoke Pearl Harbor. And, this is definitely a game that plays on a bunch of pop cultural, I part of why I'm so energized for doing this video is I just got done rewatching, like, if you haven't done it in a while, it's right here on YouTube, it's free to watch, the intro video, FMV, for this game. And I don't know, I don't think I know even one person who's played this game who didn't get pumped watching that. Like, just, holy crap. It's just, there's so much going on that I kind of want to, I could talk for a while just dissecting that. Like, the way that, okay, so the American president, there's definitely some, like, there's a bit of like the charm of JFK. They were very careful also to make sure that his intern looks like Monica Lewinsky, because this was not very many years after that, people were still talking about that. I'm glad that in more recent years, people have started like accepting, oh, hey, she's a human being. She was actually, she's a survivor of, like the power imbalance makes it. I guess can I say that on a teen rating? I guess you probably already know where I'm going with that. You know my stance. So, yeah, Bill Clinton was the one in the wrong there. Yeah, not her. But yeah, like if you've seen a picture of Monica Lewinsky, you immediately like, oh, that's and the way he touches her arm, there's a little bit of like, oh, there's yeah. Um, the Russian president is a Romanov, and he talks about his legacy, and the what was the other thing there? You have the he's the president says, "I'm the one who put you in your office," to which Romanov responds, "I am not your pet." That again is like this thing of how American foreign policy sometimes, they'll have this like, what's the word? They will install a leader, and then basically that leader will be their puppet. That they're commenting on that. They're probably more like appealing to like conservative young like this was probably more popular with like teenagers and young adults than like but yeah, at the time they might have been like, and there are a number of conservatives who play video games, even though it's not hashtag not all gamers, but yeah, I think we're supposed to sit back and be like, how dare he say that? Of course he's our pet. And let's see, I think that might be the entire. There might be more, but there's so much to unpack. Like they really, if you can look past the corniness, the purposeful corniness, there's a lot. Like they really put thought into this in a way that I would say tops what they had done before this one in that regard, at least. Anyway, then we have the. But yeah, it's such an amazing opening. Like it really got it was light years ahead of the other ones, and I like the other ones. Some of them I love. Like this is so much. Yeah, you can also tell in part like bigger budget and yeah. Anyway, the yeah, I can even appreciate like there's like it's not a perfect opening FMV. One of the you see like General Carville talking from I want to say the Pentagon, and he's like there's these two extras looking at screens, and one of the extras is clearly looking over the screen like of it's yeah and at one point like the president says gives the general an order and then says several more things, and then it cuts to the general, and then he only reacts to the order he was given or something. Like he doesn't say good idea to what the president, because the president is like, I'm gonna talk to Alexei Romanov, the Russian president, a premier or whatever. But yeah, anyway, yeah, after several minutes of like story stuff, where we get one of the greatest gifts, honestly, of like any human endeavor in general, but in part also this game. Udo Kier plays a role here, and yeah, like he is basically, like I mentioned, they're no longer building up to in this game. They're not building up to the Command and Conquer game, the Tiberian timeline. So they're not going to have, yeah, they don't have Kane. That's not a spoiler. Instead, they have Udo Kier as Yuri. Yes, he is the one taking revenge in the expansion pack, which was also such a great, like the moment that we heard that was going to be the title, we're like, oh, that's going to be so cool. And it was. And he doesn't have an awful lot of lines in the intro, but what he says is just so awesome that, like, yeah, we were quoting it for forever. But yeah, after the story setup with better, like background, higher quality backgrounds, and a little bit more in the way of like sets and props, or more, maybe just more expensive looking, but yeah. After that, we get several, we get some of like animated, and it shows off a bunch of the units that the Russian side has. And, there's several little things like, do I want to give that away? I'll just say the last shot of the intro video really, like, I'm not American, but I can imagine Americans would. Actually, yeah, I did show it to an American once. Yeah, gets them fired up, gets them like, oh, I want to stop those, SOBs. But let's see, yeah, but yeah, it's such a great, because like, yeah, you see all these, and like the first time you see them, you don't know what that unit can do. Some of them you see so briefly that it's only after you've played against a unit like that, and then you go back and rewatch the intro, it's like, oh, that was that thing, But yeah, well, yeah, I guess you get just enough time to, you can see what, you can see the design of it, but you don't know what it does yet, is what I mean. But yeah, they do a really great job of just making it clear, this is, yeah, they have a lot to work with here. But yeah, it's, it's not, the plot itself, it's not like mind blown the way that Red Alert 1 was, but it is one of those things like in 2001, I mean, the wall had fallen, the Soviet Union didn't exist anymore, but there were still some people who were very tense. Like, this is 4 years after Air Force One came out, and in that one they did say, oh, there's not, what was it? They're neo-Soviets or something like that. Ugh, I gotta watch that movie again. I haven't watched it since I did my video on it. Anyway, yeah, yes. So there was still some anxiety about, could Russia attack America, and yeah, this, explores that, not like in an intellectual way, but just like catharsis, And let's see. But yeah, as an RTS, this is an improvement in a lot of ways on the franchise leading up to it. And let's see. Yeah, so I think I will talk briefly about, so some of the characters are more like they're like, as you can probably guess, they're sometimes somewhat broad, but there is more personality to them. The some of the games in the franchise before this one, they did kind of have them be just like stoic, or there wasn't that much to them, and there's more here. And this is also the first where, like, the first in this franchise where, basically every, like, the when you're giving orders to units, all of them will say something that is completely distinct for that unit in a way that, like, says they have personality. And this is not, I'm not saying it's the first RTS to do it. StarCraft was there, again, years before this. Yes, I will eventually do a video on StarCraft and how, in some ways, it just blows other games out of the water, including ones that came years later. But I have, I've played both of these for many, many hours. Yeah, this, I think I'll just note that it brings back a bunch of things from the first Red Alert, and it improves on the ones where there was room for improvement, and the ones where there wasn't necessarily, they just leave as is. They don't mess with a good thing, if it ain't broke, yeah. But let's see, I think, yeah, I will briefly get into, so in this one, one of the major things of these, yeah, this franchise is you have to have power for the buildings, electricity, and they already had like, you know, the basic one is the power plant. They already had the advanced power plant. This one has the nuclear power plant, which is such a clever way because it costs more money, takes longer to build, and takes up more space, but boy does it deliver a lot of power. However, if it is destroyed, yes, nuclear fallout, you know, yeah, it can do damage to your base if the enemy, and it's obviously it's a pretty noteworthy target. It draws the eye, you know. So a lot of players are obviously, you know, AI and otherwise, are going to go for it if you build one. You know, if you build it, they will attack. I think, does that more or less cover for buildings? Maybe. I guess I'll briefly note that in this one, you know, this is not the first to have Tesla troopers, but in this one, oh, actually, right now I forget if it was a thing before, but certainly it is a thing here, so I'll say it just in case. You can have Tesla troopers. I think 3 is the max for it to, but after that, it doesn't really add any. But if you make 3 Tesla troopers, and then tell them to, like, essentially you have to order them to attack the Tesla coil. They're not actually going to attack it; they're going to charge it. And yeah, that makes it even more effective, which of course means that the enemy might try to take out those, you know, Tesla troopers, because, you know, infantry are easier to take out. Yeah, that brings us to, so in Red Alert 1, naval combat is one of those, there's some really awesome stuff about it. But it is definitely very uneven in that one, and they absolutely fix that here. You know, the first one, all the Soviets have for the water are the, you know, amphibious APCs, which are great, but they're not really for attacking. They're like launching an attack on beachhead and such. And other than that, they only have the submarine, and the submarine is super effective, barely an inconvenience, but it is, I'm mixing my references. Anyway, yeah. You couldn't have, like, proper battles between, you know, you couldn't really, like, we tried saying, I sunk your battleship, but it just didn't have the same ring to it, with, when it's a submarine. And then, you know, the Allied had, you know, ships, and this one, it's much more even, and that is one thing, and that's, you know, it's one of those things, like, it seems like an EA thing, because, yeah, this is the first time they do it, it wasn't the last, and they, yeah, Westwood just didn't do it, even as, like, I feel like certainly by the time of Tiberian Sun, they could have started doing it. With, you know, the previous entries in this franchise, basically it's asymmetric RTS. You know, there, you know, one side might be faster while the other is slower but tougher, for example. And there were units that felt like they were sort of missing, and you had to do something else to make up for. Whereas something like, you know, Age of Empires doesn't really enter into this discussion because most of the sides have the same units, but with something like StarCraft, you know, yeah, there are, you know, a lot of the way they'll, you know, they might have roughly the same number of units and basically have something that covers the same overall bases, but you couldn't, it doesn't really make sense to say, oh, they're just the same, you know? And that's somewhere where the, yeah, with this one, basically there's this sort of streamlining that, yeah, both sides have roughly the same access to, like, it's essentially, one of the only things is that there's no Russian equivalent to Tanya. There is one in Yuri's Revenge. I think I'll just talk about that one when I talk about Yuri's Revenge. But other than that, they do tend to have basically the same, more or less. And that's the thing, it definitely does make it more even overall, because there are just times where it's like, I don't, what can I do against that unit or that combination of units with my side, and I think the idea was supposed to be that it was gonna make players play more aggressively, because you couldn't just take forever to build up something, because no matter what you build, the enemy is going to have something against what you build. And here, that isn't so much the case, but aggressive play is rewarded by a lot of, like, I don't think there's a truly weak unit in this. You can destroy a building, and this is not a spoiler, this is something they teach you in, like, the training, the tutorial level. Just a few, I think, what did I found out once, but again, it's been so many years. I think it might be 3. If you have 3 men with rifles, and this is the basic unit, there's a lot of levels where you start with one of those. It's the first thing you can build once you start making your own units. Yeah, 3 of them, they can damage any building that, if there is 3 of them and they're not, like, being, it might not work if they're being shot at the time, but, yeah, other than that, they can destroy the toughest building if they have enough time to just stand there and shoot. Because they can damage the building faster than it can be repaired. Like, the other player would have to basically send in, engineer to fix the building up to full health. And obviously a lot of times they're going to try to just take out those guys. But this means that, yeah, if you play aggressively enough, if you manage to get just enough of these just regular troops into to attack the enemy base before they get enough of, like, if you're actually able to get it before they get even one defense building, you can do significant damage, and while they're busy repairing and trying to take out your men, you can build up another attack force, attack again, and yeah. And that just was not the case before this one. If the enemy had money to repair, they could repair faster. Then, you would need a vehicle of some kind to, and I do think that is, yeah, overall I prefer this. I think that all the tactical opportunities opened up by the streamlining, because now both sides have access to these, yeah. I think it's better that way. Yeah, I gotta talk some about the, so yeah. I guess I'll briefly talk. So the Allied forces. Other than, they have roughly what they did in Red Alert 1. And from what I recall, I talked about that to my satisfaction. And certainly, once I talk Russians, I can just say, oh, and the Allied have similar to that, But, yeah, other than what they did have. And this is, again, okay, so I already admitted that it's sometimes corny. So, yeah, they have trained dolphins, attack dolphins, which it's one of those things, like, I'm not sure where it started, but there was a little while where some media had, there were multiple instances of it. Off the top of my head, another case, oh, wait, I guess that's a spoiler, isn't it? I'll just say this is not the only place I've seen, yeah, a trained dolphin attacking, but it's so freaking clever, because you know what it does? It can damage. It has a sonic attack to just damage regular ships, but and the dolphin, No, I'm almost certain. The dolphin, if it's not attacking, it is underwater. So, you can see it if you are the you know, the player, or if it's one of your allies using it, but the enemy cannot see it. So anywhere there's water, if the enemy isn't checking, there could be like 20 trained dolphins there, But yeah, the dolphins can their sonic attack can force submarines to the surface, which means that not only can the dolphin be attacking that submarine, so can any other unit that can attack, units out there, that the ally, yeah, is using, So yeah, like you can send off a jet to attack the submarine at that point, So yeah, and that also, it can also attack the other submerged unit that the Soviets have, which is, of course, that's right, it's even called the giant squid. Yeah, the giant squid, if the enemy, if you are playing as the Russians, and you have a, and they have like a massive fleet of ships, some of these ships can do significant damage. If they have that, send a bunch of giant squids, because one giant squid will grab a ship by itself, not needing any support, and immobilize it and be attacking it until until one of these two units is destroyed. And during this, obviously the squid is also very exposed because it's no longer underwater. And let's see, from what I recall, either side can be attacking, so if you want to stop the squid, you can attack the squid without damaging the ship. If you want to hurry up and destroy the ship faster, you can attack the ship without attacking the squid, But yeah, it's a really great, yeah. And basically, like, if the squid attacks a dolphin, then either of them can just move away easily. That is also, do keep in mind, as far as I know, it is impossible to get the squid to let go. Right, and they do explain, there's these little futuristic science, electronic machine computer things on the heads of both the squid and the dolphin. That's how you can be giving them orders just like that. But yeah, it really, like, if you have as many giant squids as the enemy has ships, yeah, that can very quickly just immobilize an entire naval fleet. But then the giant squids are, especially once they start attacking, so they can't defend themselves, once they attack a ship, can't defend themselves, they're kind of easy for dolphins to take out. So, it's cost-benefit analysis everywhere. Every single tactical decision here is cost-benefit analysis. There is no tactical decision in this game where there is simply no trade-off at all. Yeah, the other than that, yeah, they have, let's see. Okay, so I don't remember which of these refers. Let's see. I think the Sea Scorpion. So I have the names of these units in front of me, but again, my wrists are bad. I'm pretty sure. I'm almost 100% certain. So yeah, the Sea Scorpion is a. Yeah, I guess I don't have to say it's a boat, do I? Or ship, whatever. I'm not. I don't remember what the difference between a boat and a ship is, but that has this, cannon. And it's it's a small vessel, so moves pretty fast. It It has AA capabilities, anti-aircraft, not Alcoholics Anonymous, and it can also shoot any naval unit. It can sometimes hit the ground running, but it can sometimes shoot onto land, but not super far. It's really not meant for that. It's primarily for defending ships and squids and such, you know. But yeah, and I forget if I said in one of the earlier ones. I'm almost certain it was true right from the beginning. But yeah, if in one of these, you know, if you've got like a unit that can be used for AA, you know, unit not building, yeah, you know, if you press G, if it spots something flying, it will try to shoot it down. Obviously, got to be careful that that doesn't let it be lured out into ambush. But yeah. And then we have the Dreadnought, which is just such a wonderful... Yeah. I guess I will just briefly note, I do think maybe they should have changed... So the Allied equivalent is the aircraft carrier. And that one does indeed... basically, both of them attack at a great distance, and they're really effective for attacking from the sea to on the ground, you know? And the aircraft carrier sends off a bunch of very small ships, and the planes, wow. The planes are very easy to shoot down and take a little while to rebuild. It's essential, like, think the carrier, that is, yeah, yeah. Actually, I think I mean, they were already making that reference in StarCraft. You know, I think this is just EA saying, yeah, we get it. We see what you're doing there. You know, but yeah, the Protoss carrier from StarCraft is essentially a flying aircraft carrier, you know, and they just call it a carrier. Here, it's a regular aircraft carrier, but it has the same basic, you know. But yeah, they're maybe a little bit too easy to shoot down for anti-aircraft. So I don't know. I think maybe the idea is supposed to be that basically when you attack with the aircraft carrier, the enemy already doesn't have any anti-aircraft protection left for whatever you're attacking. And that would be fine, except the Dreadnought doesn't have that issue at all. That one, you know, it can keep firing for basically ever, you know, as long as it's there. And it can be used to tie up the, you know, so that so that it can't. Yeah. Yeah, so that the, you know, that anti-aircraft unit or building is unable to take out anything else, so that you can launch another aerial attack and basically overwhelm the, you know, so, but yeah, and the Dreadnought fires rockets, and these rockets, I really appreciate that they've done this. I think you know what, I'm gonna go directly to, because what the rockets they fire are the V3 rockets, also used by the V3 rocket launcher. Now you may remember Red Alert 1 had the V2 rocket, and basically that's a rocket that fires a good distance, and yeah, you know, in both V2 and V3, very effective, very powerful rockets. The V2, the enemy can't really do anything about, other than, you know, like, a lot of the time, you know, you'll see a V2 rocket hit, and then it's like, oh, I gotta quickly stop the launcher. In this, the V3 rocket can be shot down by anti-aircraft, and that's such a perfect upgrade, because you know, it's still really powerful, but it now means that it doesn't feel like super unfair when one of these rockets, when a V rocket hits, you know, and in part because of that, it also means that they've made it so that it fires faster. Because otherwise it just would be completely unfair. But yeah, it now, and I forget if it maybe also moves faster, because, before they had to take it down a notch. They didn't nerf it, but they had to, let's not go completely off the rails here. But with this, yeah, it's such a great, yeah. And I think that does pretty well cover the, let's see, so, yeah, this is also one where, I think this was the first of the main games where, other than that, you'd have to go to one of the expansion packs, but, and a lot of people never ended up buying those, but, if you're playing someone online, if they don't have the expansion pack, you're stuck with the, so, but here, yeah, the Allied forces have the Rocketeer, and the Soviets have the Flak Trooper, and yeah, Bazooka Trooper, really effective against vehicles, but also against the, anything flying, including V3 rockets. You can defend a small area if you have enough of those units, even if you don't have anything else that can shoot down rockets, Whereas before, the V2 rocket would have just decimated that group of infantrymen with the first rocket and then be ready to attack, a building. Both sides have attack dogs, which are also now faster, but slightly, at least, easier to kill. So, if you send an attack dog at someone who has a gun, at least if it's only one attack dog, but you can also make multiple, obviously, but yeah. Again, I really love how they tweak these things. Adjust it. 20 years ago, when I used the word tweaked, a guy was like, what does that mean? And later I found out that word has a different meaning. But anyway, yeah, adjust it. They adjusted stuff in these really wonderful ways. The attack dog is excellent against stuff like the spy and the engineer, who don't have weapons, and you really don't want those guys loose in your base. Because, yeah, the engineer, yeah, you already know the engineer because I've talked about him before. I know. I maintain. I'm gonna be expecting you to know some of these things from the other videos. I don't know. I think they're good videos. I try not to make them longer than makes sense. Anyway, yeah, the spy, massive upgrade. Okay, so before, yeah, he's not, like, useless, but he also doesn't do that much in the first one, and here, like, yeah, if you get him, there's so many, there's a lot of unlockables that you get access to if you manage to sneak a spy into this or that building. And he's still one use. Once you set him into one building, you'll get something in this one, but you won't still have. Yeah, you'd have to make another spy and sneak him in to get more. But yeah, it's just, yeah, like I said, risk too bad to look up, but if you haven't already played this or you just didn't try that, look it up. It's just such amazing stuff. Including, like, you can get new units that are just amazing. I think I might talk about the ones I remember. Anyway, yeah, not much new to say about Tanya. She's now played by, I want to say her name is Carrie Woor, if that's how you pronounce it. And I will say I do think she's better than the one from the first, which is not really an insult to the one from the first, because I'm not sure she was that, like, Carrie Woor, this was not the first thing she did. She had been in some stuff that people watch and remember. Yeah, other than that, the Allied, the last of their regular infantry is the Chrono Legionnaire. And I think just the name if that was the most useless unit, and it's not, the name alone would have people be like, oh, that's a pretty cool name, though. But, so the Chrono Legionnaire, he can teleport, because they finally realized what an amazing thing they had in the Chrono Shift technology, that it was so underutilized in the first one. I still love the first one, I'm not dissing it, but they really, in this one, they managed to find a way to still make it fair, because I think that was what they were worried about, The Chrono Legionnaire, he can teleport he can teleport from one corner of the map to the other within a second. But the further he teleports, the longer it takes to recover. And while he's recovering, he can't move, he can't fight back, he is completely exposed, and he is still an infantryman. He can be taken out by anti-infantry stuff, including, the guy with the assault rifle that's, like I mentioned, the very first unit you get. They can take, even one of those can take him out in a matter of seconds if he's not doing anything, if he's exposed like that. So what you'll want to do is teleport shorter distances at a time, which does, of course, also mean that if you have to get him into an enemy base, and it can be extremely effective there, you're going to want to make sure that, if the enemy has defenses all around his base and inside his base, the Chrono Legionnaire is not going to be able to do very much. So he's more like, he's the guy you pull out once it requires to have done some damage, or for the enemy to just not be very good at building up base defenses or something. But yeah, but yeah, at that point, he's absolutely amazing. His weapon, let's see, it's been so long. I think they zap the target out of existence, and he can be used to attack anything that's on the ground. He cannot shoot anything that's in the air, but if it's on the ground, I think maybe ships that are very, very close, but he doesn't have that much range, but yeah. He can just zap it out of existence, and if you have multiple Chrono Legionnaires, right, and the smaller the unit, the less time it takes, and yeah, the bigger, the longer. Which also means, if he faces one infantryman and he isn't recovering from a far chrono shift, he'll be fine. He'll very quickly teleport it out of, no matter what. Yeah, and while something's being chrono shifted by the Chrono Legionnaire, it cannot move or fight back. And that's such a great. I hope whoever came up with that got a raise, because it's a game changer. It completely fixes this issue that you would otherwise have if one player has access to teleportation and the other just doesn't, because the Russians don't. But yeah, right, and if you have multiple Chrono Legionnaires, the effect intensifies, and finally, again, such great thing they did. He cannot shoot over a wall, and he can't do anything about a wall. He can only attack buildings and units. So if there's walls all around a building, you'll have to get something with explosive, something, cannon or something, to knock at least one hole in that wall before they can, but that also means that if a player is going up against Chrono Legionnaires, he might spend forever building walls and, not realize, well, I mean, most of the immigrants, they overstayed their visa. But, yeah, I think I will talk about, so, I already mentioned Tanya's back, and the spy can be used to, I don't remember exactly which, I believe it's the tech building of either Allied or Russians, but I don't remember exactly. Oh, I think it might be Allies. Anyway, you can look it up if you really want or need the information. There's I think they call it the Chrono Commando, and yeah, I think you might just have like a light bulb over your head, like yeah. It's the Commando unit or Tanya, but with teleportation, which means that if you get it close enough to, like, like, because he can take out, he can take out infantrymen even faster than the Chrono Legionnaire. And if you get him into an enemy base that doesn't have anything really defending it other than infantry, and there's not like walls around buildings and such, yeah, he's teleporting around planting bombs on all these things, and it's like, if it wasn't fair, it would be completely ridiculous. But at the end of the day, if you've got a tank or multiple that can very quickly take out infantry, yeah, there's essentially nothing he can do about that. If you have enough of those in your base that he can't get close to buildings, and again, walls are still gonna completely stop. You cannot plant the C4 on a wall in this game. I think that pretty well covers. I guess I'll briefly talk about. So I've talked about most of the. Yeah. So the Soviet infantry. I'm going to move on from infantry very shortly, but the Soviet infantry. So we have the. Holy crap. Okay, yeah, this video is getting long. I see that now. Anyway. Yeah, it has the crazy Ivan, who can plant dynamite on, I think, basically anything. So yeah, that does, from what I recall, it includes walls, and he can, yeah, the dynamite, one dynamite attack is not enough to take out anything that isn't a wall or an infantry, maybe some of the tanks and stuff that's already been damaged. So it's not like, he can, if he places dynamite on a building, it might not take out the building. Like, I think maybe it might be enough on, like, the, what are they called again? Yeah, it's right on the tip of my tongue. The defensive buildings, might be enough for that, but that's basically, and one of the things about the Crazy Ivan is, unlike Tanya, right, that's another thing about the Chrono Legionnaires and the Chrono Commando. Oh wait, no, thinking about it, I'm not sure about the Chrono Commando, but Chrono Legionnaires you can make multiple of. Tanya and maybe also the Chrono Commando you can only make one of, which also makes, helps make it not just ridiculous. But yeah, Crazy Ivan you can have as many of as you want, basically. I mean, within limits, within reason, obviously. But yeah, if you send a bunch of those at an enemy base, there's some chance that they. And let's see, I think maybe also you have to be careful with them because when they die, they explode. So if you have a bunch grouped together, it's going to be a domino chain reaction kind of thing. But if you attack an enemy base, yeah, if you're able to use a couple to take out defensive buildings, and then you get some to blow holes in buildings, and then you can start blowing holes in other buildings. That's going to open things up. But not for the Chrono Commando because different forces. Yeah, you can get Yuri, and if I recall, you can only get one of him in this one. But he can hypnotize, which is also what we see in the intro video. He can hypnotize one enemy unit at a time, and yeah, that enemy unit is now 100% under your command. And if I recall correctly, it's basically any ground unit. Maybe also if he can get close enough to a naval unit. So yeah, if the enemy was really hoping to do significant damage with one specific, really powerful unit, if he can take it over, there you go. Yeah, so let's see. So I gotta talk about, I'm not gonna talk about every single vehicle. Some of them, it is just the straightforward, but I will talk about, so another one that really opens up so many opportunities is the IFV, or Infantry Fighting Vehicle. And I do believe it's Infantry Fighting Vehicle rather than Infantry Fighting Vehicle, because it's not by itself amazing against infantry, but you can put one infantry unit in any one of these, and that infantry unit can fire their main weapon from in there. And now move faster, have more armor. Not like a ridiculous amount, but more. You can put Tanya in there and sneak her past, like you'd still need other units, like make sure there's a hole, but yeah, you can get a Tanya into an enemy base if there aren't walls and if it doesn't get destroyed on the way, because if it gets destroyed on the way, then she's as exposed as she would have been if she hadn't been, but yeah. But you can put an engineer in, and suddenly you have a mobile, crap, I forget what it's called, but the place where you fix vehicles, so yeah, you can now have, again, within reason, as many as you want of these mobile fixing, which, I do think overall I like better than the mechanic. I can't remember which of them, but that one was introduced and really only lasted there in one of the Red Alert 1 expansion packs, But yeah, because he is very easy to take out for the enemy with infantry. And again, at the end of the day, any IFV is still relatively easy to take out, but you will have to put effort into taking it out. So it's another thing to keep in mind strategically. But yeah, you can put GI in there, and yeah, that's basically armor. You can put a Rocketeer in, and now you have, now he fires rockets. I think the main weapon is also similar to rockets, but I believe the Rocketeer makes the rockets for that better. Yeah, you can use it to armor. I believe you can use it to armor a spy, if I recall. You can put a Chrono Legionnaire in there. He can still fire. He just can't teleport anymore, but, in some ways, he's moving faster than he could safely before. That's another thing. One thing that's really awesome about the Chrono Legionnaire is, if you just find that, he's not going to, the Chrono Legionnaire is simply not going to be able to make it. He's under too heavy fire. Teleport him back to base. He can recover there safe, unless you're under attack, obviously. But that's, I really appreciate that. That was a great. Let's see. Then we have the Mirage tank, which, when it's not moving or firing, is, I suppose not invisible, but it's not necessarily going to be clocked. Like, it's one of those things. So basically, the Mirage tank, it tends to make itself look like, for example, a tree. I think if you're in an area where there aren't trees, it might choose something else, but, it's not that you can't see anything there. So if you have a bunch of Mirage tanks in an area that otherwise doesn't look like it would have woods, yeah, the enemy's going to be able to see through it. But, yeah, as soon as it attacks, it is completely visible, and, it's not going to be, it takes a little, it's not, like, immediately destroyed, but, it is like a submarine. It is more effective when it's able to, It can be really useful for setting a trap, or like a kind of, if you're needing to what's it called? Like, retreat, a tactical retreat. It can be very useful if you have several of those there. And other than that, it is really useful when it's fighting. Like, it's basically, I can't say exactly what it is that it fires, but it sets infantry units on fire with one attack, and it does reasonable damage against, like, tanks and buildings and such, so yeah, if you're fighting infantry, or if you've already started attacking the enemy base, you can send in some Mirage tanks against infantry, and also just, some cover. Let's see. Right, this was also one where they increased, I don't remember the exact number. Was it 25 or something? You can, if I recall, you can set it to train, like, 25 infantry at the same time, where before I think the limit was 5, So, yeah, significant difference. And, let's see. Yeah. Oh, right, and the Prism tank can help increase the power of the Prism Tower, which is also, again, in the first red alert, yeah, the Allied forces, you know, they were stuck with just a cannon, you know, as their more powerful defensive building, whilst the Russians had the frickin', you know, Tesla coil. And I think part of it is also, I do think it is explained here, you know, there is some, like, they already had one world war, so the Allied forces built up more, you know, so yeah, that's why they are more evenly matched this time around. But yeah, let's see, the Prism tank, I feel like, isn't that the one that can also attack multiple targets at once? With this, like, not quite laser, but like, you know, yeah, it is some sort of powerful, you know, beam, which also makes sense as, yeah, oh wait, sorry, it's not the prism tank that makes them prism tower, it's multiple prism towers, and when you place one, there's like a ring that says, okay, this is the range of this thing, so they can power each other up, which in part means that the enemy will have to take down multiple of them in order to have a chance, like break the chain. And you know, this also means that you'll be slowing them down like that, you know, so yeah, very nicely done. And that also means that both sides can tell, oh, they're lining up, they're trying to attack me now because they're attacking multiple prison towers, or they're taking out my Tesla troopers, you know. I think that pretty well covers, yeah, and it makes sense, you know, they were like, well, the Russians sure were effective with those Tesla coils, we got to make something equivalent. Now, this one has, the Allied forces have a chrono miner. I wish they would let you turn off the chrono effect of it, because I get it. I think it's great that if your miner is being attacked, you know, he might have to flee, and you know, he can do that instantly now. If he's a chrono miner, you know, if you tell the chrono miner to what's it called, to put all of what it has, you know, yeah, if you ask it to return to the refinery, it will teleport there. It will also teleport there when it's gotten it's filled up its tank. But because of the teleportation, again, to make it fair, it doesn't get as much, and sometimes you wish it would just drive there. There have been times where I just straight up, like, oh wait, no, never mind. I think, no, that was something I wished were possible, but it isn't, because at the end of the day, it's never going to, you know, even if you drive it manually all the way back, instead of telling it to just teleport back. Anyway, and that is definitely a thing. You may have noticed there's a Chrono Shift theme for this one. You know, they realized how awesome it is and how underutilized it was. Let's see. I think that pretty well gets us to. So yeah, I'm not going to talk about the basic tank. It's there for both sides. You know. Now, sorry to mention that the yeah. This has something called the Kirov airship. The Russians have something called the Kirov airship. And it's extremely powerful, so they made sure to take efforts to make it fair. As soon as, you know, whenever you build a unit, as soon as the unit's ready, the unit will say something to denote that it's ready. And sometimes it'll say its own name, sometimes it'll just say, you know, something where you can tell, oh, that's that unit, you know. Like, the Mirage tank says, nothing here but us trees, for example, you know. But the Kirov, every player in the level hears, when, you know, and it specifically says, Kirov reporting, because you're going to want to prepare for that sucker. And yeah, you can make multiple, and each time the enemy will hear it, so they can sit and count how many are coming. It is slow, but it is ridiculously powerful. It can only attack what is directly beneath it, which can be a problem for the anti-aircraft, because some of them, you know, yeah, you know, yeah, There are things that it can destroy with just one bomb, and as soon as it's hovering over something, that's the thing. If you're fighting a Kirov, try to move. Don't let it be right over you. Which is a little bit. It's not always possible for the rocket troopers because they don't move that much faster necessarily, so they might not be able to attack it. Maybe keep them away unless you're finishing it off. But the vehicles that can, if you can move those around some, because some of those can, attack without being directly underneath it. But yeah, it will hover, it will stay in one place and then just drop several bombs pretty fast. Once it's over them, it starts dropping them pretty fast. And this game has, I forget what they call it, but it has this system where if a unit keeps destroying or killing for long enough, it will keep gaining in level and become extremely powerful. And that can be that especially comes in on the Kirov, and yeah, it's just amazing. Like they have these like blue, I don't know, plasma bombs once they're fully upgraded, and it's just amazing. Yeah, it is extremely powerful, and even just one can very quickly destroy a building, which, like I mentioned, you can have multiple. It can be so ridiculous to like send several over the enemy base and just have each of them attack a different building. That can make really short work of him. But again, it can be destroyed on the way. You're gonna want something as it's moving. You're gonna want to have something under it or near it or something that will take out the anti-aircraft, which means the other player will have to have something to take out the stuff that's to take out the anti-aircraft, which means you have to have something to take out them. Can you see how it gets like, yeah, it can get like kind of ridiculous with how much you have to think all this through, but yeah, it's so much fun. Like, I love the Kirov. That was one thing, like, I think that was one of the first things I really fell in love with about this, when I was still, at first I was annoyed about the corniness, but yeah, the corniness being purposeful. Yeah, the Russians still have a really powerful tank. It's now called the Apocalypse Assault Tank, yeah. And theirs is called the War Miner, which has a machine gun on top and attacks basically anything that comes close, which also sometimes is annoying. Wish there was a way to just flip a switch and turn that off, because sometimes it will draw in enemies that were not actually trying to attack the miner, that were moving past, but yeah. But again, they realized, like, because sometimes it can be annoying. And the other ones, you basically, well, and this one sometimes too, you basically have to escort the miner with, some kind of other units, Let's see. I think, does that more or less cover? Was there anything else I really wanted to? Right. Yeah. In multiplayer, you also have these. When you choose a side, there are. Let's see. Is it 5 Allied and 4 Russian? 4 Soviets. Sorry. Have I been calling them the Russians this whole time? I mean Soviets. Obviously, they're still. Anyway, moving on. Yeah. So the Americans have paratroopers, which sometimes you'll get paratroopers in general, but yeah, in multiplayer, if you play as the Americans, paratroopers will be possible for you to. You can choose where to drop them every number of minutes, and yeah, again, lots of tactical opportunities there. And yes, by this one, it finally happened. The anti-aircraft can really take out paratroopers very effectively. So be aware of that. If you're trying, do not try to drop paratroopers over, anti-aircraft, unless that's something you're doing to keep that occupied. Right, now I remember. Okay, briefly, yeah. So, no, you know what? I'll talk about them shortly. Anyway, but yeah, other than that, you know, if you just drop paratroopers, like, it can be really good for building up a massive force in your own base and then attack with, because like I said, even the basic infantry can be really useful. Oh, right, and also the allied infantry, the basic infantryman with their assault rifle, he can make this little, like, fortified base kind of thing. Really, really cool. Can't move during it, but basically it puts up as sandbags, I think. Those things, you know, military sometimes use. And yeah, he is more effective there. But it does also mean that if the enemy manages to get anything, yeah, like, he's very easy to take out like that. You know, so yeah, again, trade-off. But yeah, you can also, you know, if you place them, if you drop paratroopers, you know, you have to be careful not to drop them too close to the enemy base, because if they realize, they can just send out a couple of vehicles for, you know, the flak tanks or whatever they're called, you know. Yeah, the French have a Grand Cannon, which is so freaking powerful that, you know, and it's, you know, thankfully, like, it's slightly slow, and if I recall, it costs a bunch of power. Right now, I actually don't remember if you can build more than one, but anyway, yeah, let's see. Yeah, it's really, really powerful. It's great for forcing the enemy to scatter their forces, which will of course make them somewhat less effective, and it's easier to pick off a bunch of stragglers like that, you know. Okay, I'm gonna have to... What is the German tank destroyer? I don't remember at all. Okay, I'm gonna... Oh, right. No, yeah. Yeah. So basically, yeah, it's a tank that, yeah, it's really, really useful against yeah, against other tanks. It's really not. It's less effective than a regular tank against infantry. If I recall, I'm almost certain that's how it is. Yeah. Here we go. Nearly useless against infantry or structures. That's it. It's genuinely not. Yeah. And yeah. That's right. Oh, right. How did I forget? Okay, just briefly, I'm gonna have to talk about. So there's the. Okay, I'll have to. My wrists will recover. I am sure of it. The terror drone. I don't know how I managed to forget the terror drone. Not to be confused with the techno drone, which is a completely different thing altogether. The terror drone insta-kills infantry, but if you have enough infantry in an area, they can take it out. Because it can only kill one infantry at a time. If it gets into a tank, a ground vehicle, that ground vehicle has a very limited time to get repaired, which will eliminate the terror drone. Right, and the terror... no, yeah. If that does not happen, the terror drone will destroy the entire vehicle, and then be able to move on to round 2. Yeah, it can go for another vehicle. And obviously, the vehicles, if they're fast enough, if there's enough of them, because it can only go for one vehicle at a time. If there's multiple firing on it at once, it will have less of a chance of getting into any one of them before being... And if you choose, you can use your other units to destroy the tank. There's a chance, I'm not sure it's a guarantee, but there's some chance that it can destroy the terror drone along with it. And whilst you have control of the tank, you know, it moves slower, and you don't have very much time, but you can take it to a area, you can drive it far away from, you know, and it is completely hopeless against buildings that are defensive. You know, it can't attack them, and they can fairly quickly take it out. So, you know, it's maybe more something you send into the enemy attack force to take out enough of it that, yeah. Right, so back to the special multiplayer forces. There's a British sniper, which I don't think I have to explain further. You know, greater attack range than Tanya. Can't do anything about buildings, and yeah, that's it. But yeah, that's also great, and yeah, you know, I think they might have played Age of Empires 2, where the British have a do they call it a longbowman? I think, you know, the yeah, who is faster and has greater range than other archer units. And then we have the Korean Black Eagle, and this is an upgrade of a unit that the Allied forces have in the main campaign. Also, the Harrier, which is, yeah, you might already know, you know, the jet, if, you know, fires rockets or missiles or something. It can be very useful against buildings, vehicles, and naval units and such, you know. And let's see, then we have the yeah, the Korean Black Eagle, more powerful and yeah, just really effective. I gotta say, there was a while where I pretty much mained Koreans in multiplayer, specifically because of the Black Eagle. I will say I've gotten a lot out of the other 4 as well. Let's see. I think, yeah, that brings us to the Soviets. So the Russians have a Tesla tank, and yeah, it's been so long since I played these, but I remember it as them having made improvements to the Tesla tank of whichever Red Alert 1 expansion pack had that. Right. So the Cubans have a terrorist, and yeah, I don't think I want to go too much into that one because that is now, you know, yeah. I'd really rather we focus more on, you know, how Israel is conducting a genocide against Gaza, of the people of Gaza, human beings, children, and women, and yeah, then, but, you know, 2001, yeah, people were talking about, you know, oh, these Middle Eastern terrorists. So, if you want to know details, you can look it up. I don't really have anything else to say about it. At the time, I mean, it was already kind of insensitive, but I appreciate, you know, I do think that the unit, if we remove political context, the unit is, it was worth including. There's some really great stuff to it. Right, then you have the, okay, maybe I don't want to talk too much about what Libya has in this game either, but that one is also useful, and yeah, that was also one that they brought back in generals, so that gives you an idea. Yeah, then you have the Iraqi Desolator, which is so far removed from anything we have in the real world that I don't feel bad about talking about it. Basically, he is wearing a suit that makes him impervious to radiation, which does, yes, also go for... Oh, okay. I'm going to specify. It doesn't mean that if he's hit by a nuke, he won't die, because there's an explosion there as well. But it does mean he can go near where there's only... If there's only radiation in an area, if there isn't currently an explosion, he can go there. He has a gun that fires... see, I told you this got silly. He fires radiation, which melts the enemy, you know, turns them green and melts them. Very nice. That's some of my favorite animations for stuff like that. But yeah, he can also deploy. You know, and you probably know about deploying by now. It's been in all these games, just not usually for infantry units, but yeah, he can. You place him in a place, deploy him. He will. There will be an initial burst of radiation, and then it fades. And then there's another burst of radiation, and another until he dies or you tell him to stop. To undeploy, which, again, you should probably be familiar with by now. But anyway, yeah. That means he is essentially... Like, I think maybe the British sniper, other than that, no infantry unit can get close enough to him when he's deployed to even do damage. in this game, radiation does do some damage to vehicles as well, and buildings and such, you know, so yeah, he can be very effective. And again, they did, like, I think if they had let you move him whilst he's deployed, it would be like, no, this is ridiculous. How do you even fight him? And at the same time, you know, if you manage to catch up to him before he's deployed, you can take him out with another infantry unit. You know, I mean, you would have to attack with several so that he doesn't melt everyone. But yeah, you know, anyway. And you can take him out with anti-infantry stuff from units that are not infantry, you know? So, yeah, it's not unfair, but he does provide, he is very, very effective, you know? Let's see. I think we can move on. I think that does more or less cover the... Right, yeah, okay, I gotta talk about, so, the spy satellite uplink will give you the entire map if there's enough time, which means the enemy is gonna want to I forget right now if the countdown on that is visible to all players. I think it might be. But yeah, it's such a great way to yeah. Let's see. Right, and there's also something called the ore purifier for the allies, and yeah, it's immensely effective as yeah, you know, it allows you to gain additional credits from your load of ore your miners return to your refineries. Over time, the ore purifier pays for itself many times over. And that covers there. Right, and they also, yeah. Yes, that brings us to the last of the buildings, so the armory. Yeah, of course they called it the Patriot missile system, but yeah. The gap generator is indeed back. Yes. I know it sounds like too good to be true, but in this game, as the allies, you can build your own gap store. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, you can make those blacked out gaps in the map anywhere you place one of these things, and yeah, that actually means that if you manage to build a bunch of those and then get the spy satellite, yeah, you can actually, which yeah, there's a bit of honesty. Yeah, America are the ones building a spy satellite that allows them to see everything everywhere all at once. So yeah. I mean, yeah, when this came out, I'm not entirely sure if they were, like, being honest with themselves, or they were saying, like, people love this. People love the American military, which, I mean, there was a little while there where a lot of people did, especially in America. But yeah, if you have the spy satellite and the gap generator, you can be spying on every enemy, and only your allied enemy... that sounds weird. Only the enemies who've chosen to play as the allied side. This video is getting longer than I thought it was. Anyway, I'm getting my back treated not too long from now anyway, and I don't know, if nothing I've said up to this point has felt worth it to you, I'm sorry. That I'm trying, you know. I hopefully am doing a good job, but yeah, I don't know. I think if you're at all into this franchise, probably something I've said by now was either like, wow, maybe I should play this game, or wow, I remember that from playing this game. But yeah, you can see everything that the Soviets are doing, and they can't see anything you're doing, except for when they have people close enough to the gap generators. And the gap generators can, of course, be destroyed. But yeah, at this point, they're... Yeah. Yes. Right now, I actually don't even remember if the Allied had a super weapon in Red Alert 1. Did they maybe have the the nuclear missile? I genuinely don't remember. I think it might have been that they didn't have one because of others. And to be clear, like, they do have things that... Anyway, I'm going to move on. I talked enough about that, I think. In this one, both sides have two super weapons, I guess. They're kind of called that. They're classified as that. It's essentially, it's a super weapon and a super tool. And the chronosphere is indeed back. Before you could only teleport one unit. And if, let's see, I think they still have the thing where if there are infantry, if you try to chrono shift infantry, they will die. Even if they're inside. Yeah, I can't explain why if you put infantry inside like a transport vehicle and then chrono shift it, they'll die. But like the people driving the vehicle don't. I'm not saying it makes sense. But yeah, you still can't do that. But now the chronosphere actually does form like, I guess possibly a sphere. It's yeah. It makes this, it can cover multiple vehicles now, and you can in fact teleport them directly into the enemy base and they'll immediately be ready to attack. And again, because of, for one thing, as soon as a super weapon or tool is built, there's a countdown before it can be used, as usual, and if I recall, that building is immediately revealed to every other player on the map, and no gap, and it's just it's visible, so they can start planning to attack it immediately. So before you build one of those, you're going to want to make sure there's sufficient defense there, unless you are using it to lure the enemy to attack it while you attack their base or something like that. That's also a viable tactic. But yeah, so if you spent too long waiting for the chronosphere, yeah, the enemy might destroy your base, because I've already mentioned some of these ground vehicles, ridiculously effective, and the allied super weapon is the weather control device. Ah, great. Now Marjorie Taylor Greene's going to start another thing. It has about the range of effectiveness, when you attack a place with it. It has the same area of effect, I think it's called. Yeah. I don't think I talk enough about games. I can't believe I struggle to remember what area of effect is called. There's a bunch of lightning, and they can decimate a base. Like, this is a game where you can win pretty much with one attack of a super weapon if the enemy is not careful enough. And that's something I really appreciate, because like that's the thing, like in this one, oh yeah, I know that. It's a reminder. Anyway, this is a game where you can have, like, I've played extremely short matches. Like, sometimes a match can be over in minutes. I already mentioned, 3 infantrymen can destroy any building if given enough time and not being attacked. So yeah, sometimes the Zergling rush, you can infantry, you can GI rush, or what was it called again? Okay, I'm just gonna make sure I get it right. You can conscript rush. You can send a bunch of just the basic unit, which easy to make, cheap to make, moves fast enough. What's the word? You can tell it to make 25 of them and just focus on making money for making them, and just send an endless stream to the enemy base, win in a couple of minutes. And that's just something that, like, and at the end of the day, keep in mind, the enemy can also, hypothetically, if 2 players attempted the same, yeah, like for a little while there might be like a stalemate where they're just like meeting in the middle and just constantly gunning each other down. Then after some minutes, maybe one of them starts building something else to help change things, and yeah, I think they did largely a good job of evening things out, you know. But yeah, it's so satisfying sending the weather attack, I think they call it, weather strike maybe. Anyway, right, and I appreciate the Soviets. Their main power plant is the Tesla reactor. I think that might more or less cover. Let's see where do we? There we go. Yeah. Right. The Russians can build cloning vats, which allows you to make 2 of any unique unit, and also train any non-unique unit twice as fast. Which is again a massive, you know, but at the same time it also drains power, and yeah, but yeah, you can, you know, if you you can make 2 Tanyas if you're playing in a way, you know, you can take over the Soviet MCV and build, you know, cloning vats, make 2 Tanyas, you can make 2 Yuris, you know, just, yeah. And yeah, it was a lot of effort, but it was so worth it. That there was a time where I was able to attack one of my enemies. I think I fought 2 AI enemies, and one of them was Soviet, so I took over their base, built cloning vats, did the whole, yeah. Ended up attacking the other AI enemy. Never stood a chance. I try to make up for it by being polite to ChatGPT now. I'm kidding. Don't use ChatGPT. Anyway, yeah, you have the in general, you know, try to not do AI. It's there's a lot of we'd be here all day if I started talking about all the problems with AI. Anyway, yes. So the yeah, I attacked the other AI enemy with 2 Yuris, 2 Tanyas, 2 Chrono Commandos, and a partridge in a pear tree, and yeah, there was just nothing they could, because the thing is, once you have 2 Yuris, and again, the Soviets can have 2 Yuris once they make cloning vats, you know, yeah, the first unit that attacks the first Yuri, take it over. You know, then you start using that unit to attack something else. Another enemy unit's gonna pop up. It's gonna attack the first unit you took over, or one of the Yuris, take it over with the other Yuri. And you can use that to just gradually grind down their army 100%, unless they are very careful. Again, from what I recall, Yuris cannot attack anything that is currently flying. So yeah, you know, send something in the air, take down the you know, Yuri's, yeah, and sniper. Yuri can't reach far enough to hypnotize a sniper that is targeting him. Yeah. Then we have the psychic sensor, which I'm so glad that, let's see, I think, no, yeah. That was introduced in either Tiberian Sun or Firestorm, and it's back, baby, because it's just so freaking cool. Yes, the psychic sensor, within its range, will warn you, oh, there's someone headed, they're coming this way, you know. So you can prepare for the enemy attack, which of course does also mean if you know your enemy has a psychic sensor, don't send your units immediately within the range of the psychic sensor. Place, you know, tell them to go slightly outside, and then once they're ready to, you know, then send them the rest of the way. But yeah, a lot of the time it's gonna, you know, and that does still mean, because like that kind of means, well, if you have a psychic sensor and you know the enemy might pull that move that I just described, set up something slightly outside the psychic sensor. For example, a bunch of terror drones, you know? So yeah, it's very nice. Like, again, just it could turn into an Ouroboros or an OB. Still so glad that he's acting again. But yeah, somehow it manages to just lead to people, like, because like a match of this game so much of it is like the one player going like, oh, that's what he's doing, well then I have to do this, like just realizing what strategy they're using, and instead of being like, well, now I have no chance, as was sometimes the case with including other games in this franchise, but some RTS games, if they're not completely evenly matched, I feel bad for the developers because it's difficult to tell before RTSs, sometimes the sides end up not evenly matched. RPGs, sometimes certain skills and abilities turn out, OP or not super useful, and people might end up, putting points into stuff that they end up not finding super useful. It's very difficult to know before you start, and some of it can be very difficult to patch. Anyway, so the armory, the Soviets still have the nuclear missile silo, and the explosion looks so freaking good. They really made efforts to make it look, it's a massive upgrade. The graphics in general are a massive upgrade. I am popular all of a sudden. Okay, I'm just gonna make absolutely sure if this is something that, no, yeah, that's just a, yeah. Anyway, the nuclear missile, much more effective. Also, like, sometimes it's ridiculous to me. There are buildings that won't even be destroyed by if you drop a nuke on them in Red Alert 1. It's like, okay, what are we doing here? What is this? And in this one, like if it's within the area of effect, no, it's just gone. There's no, which does segue nicely into the other thing that they have, which is the Iron Curtain, which is, it's not quite as clever as calling the first game Red Alert and then having be, we have a Red Alert, the Reds are attacking, it's an alert, but the Iron, the Iron Curtain, I did not forget that the Iron Curtain is also in the first one. But anyway, in the first Red Alert, it can only cover one unit, and because of units by themselves not being super powerful there, it's just not quite enough that it made a huge difference, which again, I think was in part the point. It was supposed to be just one more aspect of your assault on the enemy base or something. But here, like the Chronosphere, it actually, there's a sort of bubble, the upper half of a bubble, I guess. Maybe the other half is underneath. Maybe there's some poor rabbits or something crawling around under there being taken out by these. But yeah. And the Iron Curtain will still, if you use it on infantry, it will insta-kill. Which, there are times where you can use that as a weapon. If the enemy has grouped together a bunch of infantry, you can use the Iron Curtain if you don't personally feel like using the Iron Curtain on a bunch of tanks. But it's extremely effective on the tanks because during the Iron Curtain effect, there's simply no way to damage them. Actually, right now I forget. Okay, I don't know where to look that up though. No matter. Right now I don't remember if even the Chrono Legionnaire can't do anything. I wouldn't rule it out, certainly. But and again, you get a warning. Essentially, the game is set up to where if you let the timer go to 0 on your enemy's super weapon or super tool, sorry, buddy. I mean, maybe you did your best, but sometimes your best just isn't good enough. He might win now. That might be him winning the game, which also means that if you build up a significant force and then, then you construct one or more of the, one or more, or one, either or both of these. You can also only build one. Like if the enemy, that might be telling the enemy, I'm coming for you. If you're not ready, get it, or make things right with whatever deity you do or do not believe in. Right. I guess I will briefly. So the the AI, sometimes a little mixed, but I would say a lot of the time, really, really good. I had a lot of fun trying to outsmart the AI and sometimes even succeeding while playing this. Um, yeah, all of the cutscenes, the FMVs are much better. There's camera movement now. You know, there used to only be camera movement during animated sequences, but now, like, yeah, there's pans and like there's just yeah. And yeah, the audio is improved, and I think it really works, this thing of, you know, all of the units having enough personality, and yeah, explosions sound gnarly and death screams sound horrifying and such. And the music is really, really great. I keep changing my mind on, so I guess I won't make a definitive statement. They did a remix of Hell March, and it exists. You know, you can, I believe it's free to listen to right here on YouTube. It's one of those things of like, I definitely don't think it's as good as the original. I think the times where I really don't like it is the times where I in general don't like the game, and I kind of resent them trying to, you know, pull that move, play that card, you know, like, no, this is not the same as Red Alert 1, you know, kind of thing. But then when I focus on how tactically this is more compelling of a game, yeah, then I can really, really get into it. I do think it is overall a good piece of music, and I appreciate they needed to change it to reflect. You know, there's actually you know, there's so much chrono shifting in this game. Even the logo in the opening, in the intro video, chrono shifts, you know. Yeah, I think they do a good job of making it challenging, but not making it like unfair and just frustrating and not fun to play. Let's see. I don't know if anybody's still playing this. You'd have to look elsewhere for that piece of information. I hope so. I think it still deserves to be played. There's so much. Like, that's the thing. One thing I really appreciate about RTSs and RPGs, I think, are the two genres that have the highest capacity to make something truly unique, something that, like, genuinely cannot, well, I suppose could be replicated and then expanded upon, but like so much of the time just isn't. You know, there's so many of these where like units will, you know, and special stuff, you know, will be in one of these games and then not appear again, or be gone for several games in a row and then reappear and that sort of thing, you know. And yeah, I think that might be about. Yeah, the level design is also really solid. They made a lot, you know, whether we're talking like campaign levels or like multiplayer kind of thing, you know. Yeah, they did a really great job. There's so many. I must have played all of them. I know I did for Red Alert 1 and its expansion packs, because that gives you an idea of how much I've played these games, you know. But yeah, I don't offhand remember coming across a level where I thought, oh, this was just bad. And there's a good variety to settings as well. It really, like, some of the other ones, you know, is like a lot of villages, and then it's like kind of barren land and stuff like that, or maybe some forests and such. And by this point, yeah, I mean, there's like cities that look like, oh, this actually functioned until recently, you know, and just, yeah, so much that, yeah, there's a great variety to, repeating myself. Moving on. Yeah, mission design is great. They make sure that, because there are a bunch of levels in the single player campaign, you know, and yeah, you know, sometimes you're protecting, sometimes you're building up a base and or destroying another base. Sometimes it's like essentially scouting, recon kind of thing. You know, yeah, very, very nicely done. And holy crap, this got long. Yeah. I don't know. I hope you weren't doing anything else today. I really hope, I do sincerely hope that this was as enjoyable for you to watch as it was for me to record, because, yeah, clearly, I'm a big fan of this game. Holy crap. Yeah. And I think that does cover everything. So you are free to go. Just think about what you've done. And yeah. Yes. With everything taken into account, I rate this 8 reinvigorings of a franchise. I mean, it wasn't like dying, but I think if this hadn't been such, I would say improvement. I do think we would have been like, okay, we're not really going anywhere, like, yeah, out of 10.